All right, hello, welcome everybody to Simon Says, first episode. This is not exactly what I pictured the first episode to be. I really didn't have any intentions on this being the first episode. It was gonna be more comic related stuff. However, I Game of Thrones season 8, episode 3 was yesterday. A lot of talk about it today, and I had to say something about it because it's starting to bug me. I see a lot of reactions online that it was great, best hour of TV or best hour and 20 minutes, whatever it is. And I gotta disagree, man. I gotta strongly disagree. And look, before we get into this, I understand the choices that were made. There were aesthetic ones, artistic ones, if you want to call it that. I just don't agree with them. So, to begin, Simon says, I don't like it. To be specific, episode 3 of season 8, entitled The Longest Night, is the big climactic battle, the battle for humanity. Light versus dark, fire versus ice. Now, here's a little something you TV show, only those who only watch the TV show may not really get, is that this series is not called Game of Thrones. It's actually called A Song of Ice and Fire. And yes, Joe Rogan, I read the books. Fuck you. I can perfectly imagine a pair of titties. I don't need someone to actually show them to me. I have the intellectual capacity for someone to describe one, or having seen them before, I can picture them again in my mind. I don't need someone to show me them to be like, oh, whatever. Yeah, I read the books, and I'm proud of it. So, eat it. So keep going. Anyway, first off, the best episode of Game of Thrones is this one right here. Not all heroes wear capes, some just hold the door. Obviously, if you guys have watched this series, you'll know what that's referencing, and that's a prime example of what I'm talking about here. What was wrong with this episode. Now, I'm going to go into spoilers, heavy spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode, know now that we're going to spoil it. I'm going to give you a 5 count. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Turn it off, because here we go. Okay, so the big thing wrong with this episode, other than the very technical aspect, which is that it was too dark and it was hard to see things that were going on. Not just that it was too dark, but it was difficult to make what was going on. Like a lot of times, I was watching it with my wife, and I had to ask her. It's like, is that person dead? Does that mean he's dead? Is there two dragons now? Is there one dragon now? Did the other dragon die now? Or I'm not sure which dragon is this. Okay, and is he? And no. Now here's the problem. Like, I understand. They're going for like a fog of war and everything's chaotic type of mood, but that's good for setting up, okay? Not for what is supposed to be the epic grand finale battle scene, okay? Like if you were trying, like for example, Saving Private Ryan opens up with a battle scene just like that, where they establish that war is hell and everything is chaotic and people's getting hurt and nobody knows what's going on, and in the moment things are chaotic, and that's cool. But after that, even when we get into back up to fight scenes or other battle scenes, we see what's going on. Even if they throw in a little bit of little fog of war type stuff where things are chaotic, we generally know exactly what's going on. There's no hampering of the action and of this story. And the problem with my one of my main issues with this episode is that you can't really tell what's going on. It's hard to decipher, and being that it's basically what should have been probably the last episode, another little small caveat I have with this kind of setup, being that it should have been more or less the real finale. I mean, we're talking about the fate of humankind. We need to see that. As a storyteller, as someone who sets up a story, we need to be able to follow that story and have a clear understanding of what's going on, especially in the finale. If you want to set up that war is hell and that all this, it's a super overwhelming force, that's cool. You can do that. You can do that in this episode, or you can start it off like that, but then we need to kind of transition to a more normal type scenario where we can actually tell what the hell's going on, who's getting fought, and is Sam down? No, it's not Sam, it's his friend, and, etc. So my suggestion would obviously to have been to show that kind of hopelessness or that massiveness in like the battle versus in Umber, House Umber. So when that was the previous episode where they showed that little kid, and he was stuck on the wall, and all the limbs were spiral around him, and they could have actually very well called back to that, and that could have been an important scene because who did Osha take to that castle? Rickon. Everybody forgot about Rickon. Yes, there's another Stark out there. Everybody seems to have forgotten about, and it kind of would have been cool, even if he died. I mean, if they wanted to play it that way, we don't know what happens to him in the books either. So if they wanted to off him, and they're HBO is not going to surprise me by offering another Stark without Martin's consent or anything. But if they wanted to off him, that would have been an awesome place to do it. You could have had a 20-minute, 30-minute thing of House Umber, getting wrecked basically by these overwhelming forces, and Rickon, this Stark that's out there who's supposedly safe, he bites it, and that would give us that whole sense of scope and grandeur without actually impeding the next episode where we see the actual grand climactic battle versus fire versus ice, good versus evil, life versus death. We need to see what that's going on. That's an artistic choice that they made, and unfortunately, I and many others don't agree that it was a good call. Again, I'm all for artistic license and all that stuff. However, when you're trying to tell a story, and especially in the it's been 8 years we've been following. I mean, much longer for me and other book readers. We've spent a lot of time with these people, a lot of hours, money, etc. Were invested. We should be able to tell clearly and see clearly what is exactly going on when you're telling this epic story. So that's that point. Next, I want to kind of hit. I understand that the HBO series is called Game of Thrones, and that it's that they're portraying it as the most important thing is who sits on the throne of Westeros. When clearly, I mean, it's throne of Westeros or all of humanity dying. Which is the more epic struggle? And that's one of my issues with this epic finale, or what should have been really the finale, or one of the last battles. It should have really been the thing that either unites humanity or the end cap to this long struggle of petty humans, fighting against each other for a greedy, malicious reason, and then all of a sudden, the fate of the entire human race depends on what they do north of Wall, and that's fine. 3 episodes. I'm not really sure how you can get 3 more episodes after this. If you really want to extend the human, struggle for the throne part of it, you can. I guess. I guess we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to see it. This is not to say that I don't enjoy this series still. I feel it would have been better if George R. R. Martin finished it, but we know where that goes. So I'm not even gonna get into that. So, what else? I felt there was a lot of. I mean, obviously, some of the decisions that were taken in this episode just were strange. I mean, again, they were trying to go for this artistic license of all these all these flaming swords go into the fight these endless horde of darkness, and it shuts out all the lights. And I read the article. I get what the director was going for. This is not like, oh, I'm too dumb to understand, the message that they were trying to convey with their artistic license. I just think it was a bad call. I mean, strategically, it was a bad call. They wanted to go with this natural lighting to make it feel more authentic. Look, bro, we're watching a show about dragons and magic and undead, and natural lighting is the last thing that I give a shit about when I want to see what's going on, and we have the technology to help that happen. And if the theories are correct, and there's a few theories out there that this is ultimately being told by Bran or somebody, which would kind of be cool, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to see everything that goes on. He's the entire vault of human knowledge, so he should be able to have a clear understanding of what is going on and be able to relay that. And just as a director and a cinematographer, from that point, you want to tell the best story you possibly can for your audience. They should be able to understand that. And there are ways you can do that and set a mood too. Like it can still be dark, but you can still what's going on. There's plenty of movies that do it. I mean, I'm not gonna start listening to them here, but they're out there. You can find them. So go ahead and do some research. You'll see. What are some other little minor gripes here and there? Like it seemed kind of absolutely ridiculous that Beric Dondarrion, first of all, a character that I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I actually liked him in the book, so I'm happy that he stayed alive because I felt like the whole Caitlin Stark thing was just a weird. They went really nowhere with it, and I kind of like that Beric Dondarrion was still around. But at the same time, I feel like he's been brought back a bunch of times, and it seemed like if you're gonna string him along for this whole entire purpose till he gets all the way to the last climactic battle, you probably should have used him better than like him going into a castle to search for one girl. Because ultimately that's how he's seeing it, right? Like it's just he understood the difference, especially Beric Dondarrion. You can tell that he understands the difference between like the needs of the many versus the needs of the few, and we see that when he's willing to give up Gendry to supply his troops with more weapons and armor and food and stuff. And it seems weird that he would make the choice to go into like this one castle to protect one girl when there's a horde of undead running around rampant, and he's got a flaming magic sword. I mean, like, dude, you're one of the dudes. Like, you're one of the main guys that should be out there, spearheading the attack, because like the Lord of Light is definitely on your side. He's like more so than many others here. I mean, it's been proven he's brought you back from the dead. He's gave you a magic sword. You don't need to be running around inside the castle. Let the Hound do that. Let somebody else do that. You need to be out on the front lines. I mean, I wouldn't have minded if Beric Dondarrion was the one that actually winds up killing the Night King. But, I mean, we're going to get to that too. But that's a whole other system. I do like that Tyrion pointed out that it's kind of ridiculous for him to be in the crypts. When he actually has helped before strategically, and he's been in wars and stuff like that. Like that did seem like a kind of a weird call, not to use him in that way. It also seems like a weird call to put a bunch of people in the crypts when there's undead walking around. I mean, like, come on, nobody saw that coming. Tyrion didn't see that coming. Dude's a smart dude. Like that's his whole thing. He drinks wine and he knows things, and he should have known better. So I mean, I'm not particularly crazy about that idea either. And let's see. So, finally, I know there's going to be a lot of grief about this, and I frankly don't give a shit. Arya should not have done. She should not have killed the Night King. We should not have be at a point in time or place where Arya can kill the Night King. Like that is not her storyline. That is not her place. That is not her. That is not the story that we've been seeing from Arya. Okay, like if you follow the trend, all the characters have their trend, right? And one of the things that's bothered me lately with the HBO since they left off where George Martin left off, or since they continued going where George R. Martin left off, is that they seem to have taken their own direction, and it kind of departed a little bit drastically, or not so much drastically, but obviously from where he would go. And one of those things is this right here. So if we follow Arya's story from the beginning, I mean, it's always been she is trying to become a warrior. Yeah, I'm not going to say that it's not possible for her to do it. It's just that she shouldn't have. So the payoff should not have been Arya kills the Night King, because Arya from the beginning has always been fighting the human side, the people that hurt her family. Her list always included people that hurt her directly and her family and friends. And I understand the Night King was going to kill Bran. Okay, great, but that's a totally different issue, okay? And the reason I say that's a totally different issue is because there are several other characters in this story who have been directly associated with the Night King, with beating the Night King, with prophecies of the Night King, etc. So it kind of undermines everybody else's story when you have a character that has nothing to do with the Night King ultimately take him out. And take him out in kind of a, let's be honest, kind of a cheesy fashion. Like all of a sudden, she's able to bypass a bunch of a bunch of White Walker generals and whatnot, and just like jump out of nowhere and, try to stab a Night King who grabs her. And like, I'm going to say I don't understand why she just didn't immediately freeze to death when he grabbed her by the throat, because everybody else that he touches or whatever gets immediately frozen. And even if he didn't immediately freeze her, as soon as she dropped the knife and he knew it was going down, and let's be honest, there was a look, he knew what was going to happen, he could have immediately frozen her. Taking no time. The dude has frozen miles around. She would have been immediately frozen, not have been able to move or catch the dagger or anything like that. But again, for story's sake, we're going to say, okay, so she stabbed her. Whatever. Now, again, the point is that not that Arya did it, because I don't, it's that she undermines Bran's story, she undermines Jon's story, Daenerys' story, even Beric Dondarrion, because again, I'm going to say Beric Dondarrion has more motive and more reason and more backstory to be in that place doing that thing that Arya did than Arya did. Arya's whole entire backstory journey, let's call it the journey, her entire character journey and arc has been about having the power to defend herself and take her vengeance on those that have wronged her in the past. And for that reason, I said it would be wildly more appropriate for in this next couple of episodes for her to actually maybe while Cersei and Euron or whatever are fighting, Jon and Daenerys and all them, maybe while those armies are fighting, Arya is the one that slips in and uses her Faceless One abilities to kill Cersei, to kill Euron, and turn the tides, and ultimately she could be the reason why they win the Iron Throne. But in this sense, it seemed like it just took away Bran's story. I mean, really, what function does Bran serve if he had absolutely nothing to do with the Night King's demise or even defeat? Really, I mean, because if you would have told me like Bran at least did some type of thing that like caused him to hold or whatever. My initial theory when that happened was that he was going to either take over the Night King, or when he was like his eyes were rolled back, he was going to do something where he went back into the past and placed some type of weapon or something near him, or I don't know. He wound up killing him. Like that would have been ideal if Bran had become the Night King or some type of twist or something. That would have been another thing. But it just seems like having Arya kill him, especially in that manner, and Bran really having nothing at all to do with any of the battle, any of what happened, just seems to undermine both Bran's story and everybody else's story, kind of, except for Arya. And I mean, look, they've been going to extreme lengths to make Arya seem like a badass and all that. Cool, she is. I no props to her. But there are other ways and other characters that needed a little bit more closure in terms of what their character stories were going through. And I understand that Game of Thrones seems like it's always about the shock and the twist and all that stuff, but not really. George R. R. Martin usually sets things up so that things have a payoff, and even when it doesn't seem like it's the pay, it may not be the payoff you want, but there is some type of payoff. For example, Ned dying. A lot of people were, where's the payoff in that? Well, that actually kicks off the entire story, really. I mean, that kicks off the war, everything that's going on. The Red Wedding seems pointless, but not really, because that is a capstone or a part of the whole Davos Melisandre Stannis storyline, where he's sacrificing and they're using black magic to kill people. By him, Joffrey, he kills Rob, Joffrey, and the other Greyjoy. I can't forget I don't remember his name right now. But anyway, so things that seem senseless at the time, and when you put them into perspective, they all have some type of payoff. And it just doesn't seem like any of this had any type of payoff. Like Bran's entire 8-year, storyline was to get him to the Three-Eyed Crow so he could do something, and all she did was just sit there. Like, come on, man. What happened? Why do we even need to see that? You could have just told me he went to go see Three-Eyed Raven, came back, and now his eyes goes back in his head. Cool, whatever. He's just gonna sit there anyway. I don't care. Now his journey means nothing to me because he's so far has been useless. He hasn't done anything other than tell Bran that Jon that he's a Targaryen. Cool, thanks. Sam already figured it out from reading books. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I understand, and while I was watching I don't want anybody to get me wrong, because while I was watching it, it was very exciting, it was thrilling. However, it's just one of those things where like let's all be honest. There have been plenty of things that we have done as human beings that felt awesome, and the moment they were cool and all that stuff, and then after it happens, you're like, that wasn't a good idea. I should not have done that, and what was I thinking, and et cetera, et cetera. And this is one of those things where, like, in the moment, I was like, oh, this is cool, whatever, and then, oh, wow, oh, and then you're like, afterwards, you're like, you sit back and you think about what just happened. You're like, nah, man, I'm not, I'm not okay with this. This is not. It should have been done better. You had the budget to do it better. You had the resources to do it better. You had the time and planning, and there's no reason. And you know, the another thing people are going to hit me with is, well, they're only doing it in 6 episodes. Well, look, that wasn't their choice. It wasn't. No one was saying no more Game of Thrones. In fact, everybody I know, when they said there's only going to be 6 episodes left, were like, "What? That's crazy." At least finish it out correctly. And everybody, I mean, I think it's universally felt that the last season and this season especially have been felt very rushed. You know, people are basically teleporting from place to place. Like, there's no sense of journeying anymore. It's like, oh my, I'm gonna ride my dragon that flies friggin' like super Mach speed on his back without a saddle, without anything. I'm just gonna hold on. Sure you are. Okay, cool. So, you know, I just wish they would have taken a little bit more care. I really would have loved to hear um, what George R. R. Martin says about, you know, the whole Night King and Arya killing him and all that stuff. I'm curious what his actual moves are, because, like I said, even Hodor, a stupid little thing like this dude just says Hodor, and it's super annoying, and you friggin' dealt with it for so many books. You're like, oh god, dude, Hodor, yeah, we get it, okay. And then look at the payoff, and that was actually written, and Martin actually consulted on that with HBO. So that was, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was actually how he intended that whole sequence to play out, and that's why he actually says Hodor, which was really the best show on this series, or at least the best payoff that we've gotten so far. And that was kind of what I was meaning by, like, everything has some type of payoff. Even if it's not the payoff you think it is, there generally is a payoff. And I, maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't see how Arya killing the Night King is a type of payoff to anything at all. Other than showing, yeah, she's a badass. But, I mean, there are other ways to show that that don't negate everybody else's character journey, like John's, for example. And I'm not saying John should have been the one to kill her, but John at least has a backstory of he's been fighting the Night King, him personally, you know, and, you know, figuratively, he's been fighting this war against the Night King in the North since the beginning. And it kind of sucks that he just got stuck there by a dead dragon, which also seemed like the dragon seemed like an afterthought almost. You know, this whole series, just like the dire wolves, they didn't show them at all. You know, they have a little bit more prominence in the books, and I understand their animals are hard to work with and all that stuff, but it just seems like the dragons could have and should have, like, they made such a big deal about them, and in the end, they didn't really do much. I mean, you know, I'm sure the last dragon will have a lot to do in the last battle, but I feel like that was a big thing that they kind of dropped the ball on, and something I was hoping to see more of. Like, that really should have turned the tide a lot more. And if they didn't want it to do that, they should have figured out some type of way other than just, you know, what they did to kind of take them out of the equation. But yeah, I mean, let's stop and think about this for a second. Like, Arya literally had to be, like, hiding in a bush in the Godswood while all of these people surrounded her, right? Because we're not. Look, I understand that Arya is good, but she ain't, like, walking past an army of White Walkers good as a faceless man. Like, good, yeah. There's good and there's, you know, crazy. So, I mean, we have to imagine that she's just been sitting there waiting for her opportune moment to strike, and then she just jumped out of nowhere. Meanwhile, everybody's dying around there. I mean, is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? Probably not. And is it good storytelling? Not at all. At least not. That's not my opinion anyway. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say on that. I just felt like I had to talk about it, And I understand that, a lot of people are not going to disagree with me, but I feel like this is one of those things where everybody's going to kind of get caught up in it, and nobody wants to admit, or at least a lot of people don't want to admit, that it's not as good as they think it was. Like, when you get in it and you watch it, you're like, wow, but if you really start and think about it, and you don't let, people influence your opinion or social media or whatever, you don't get caught up in that whole, like, oh, I saw it, it was great, yeah, well. If you kind of step back and you think about the payoffs and everything that happened, I personally just don't think it was good. Like, I think they could have done a better job. Um, I still like the show. I'm still going to watch the show, but I wanted a little more thought into, how Arya saving the day affects other people's stories. And honestly, to me, really, it just felt like this was one of those, like, they set it up basically so you think that Jon is going to do it, and then they're like, "Oh, look at this! We're so clever! It's Arya!" Like, I just felt like it was so, they did it on purpose, and I really would have loved to that have to gone a different way. Like I said, it didn't have to be Jon. It could have been Daenerys. It could have been. I would have actually liked it to be Bran. It could have been a number of people who actually have a history or have a purpose or have some type of connection to fighting the Night King, other than Arya, who's really, her entire character arc and story and journey is to protect her loved ones. And I understand the Night King was threatening a loved one, he was threatening Bran, but that's kind of that's not the same. She was more in, like, the rooted in the war, in the human war aspect side of it, and she was more rooted in the men must die aspect, and she was training herself to kill the men and the people who hurt her family. And meanwhile, Jon has been fighting this whole time, against these supernatural people that, like, he's a bastard. Like, so think about, let's think about Jon's story for a second. Jon's story is that he was a bastard. He feels loved by this guy who he thinks is his father, but he knows he can't do anything there, and he knows the mom doesn't want him there. So he goes to the place where he thinks that he can do the most good for the most amount of people and feel honor. So he goes to the wall, and he says, I'm going to protect humanity against the wildlings and all the things that go bump in the night. So his entire story arc is kind of like okay, I don't have a family. I don't have an actual real family because I'm a bastard. So I'm gonna get this family. I'm gonna join this family, and we're gonna be the ones that protect everybody. Like, okay, I can't be a knight. I can't be like one of these landed lords like my brother Robb Stark or Bran Stark or Rickon or Sansa or Arya. But I could be a man of the Night's Watch, and that's important. They're a family. They protect people. They protect everybody, actually. They, on the wall, they protect humanity. So that was his whole character arc, is to be the real, like, one of the honest to goodness, good people in the world who doesn't compromise his moral integrity to do the right thing. And he goes out of his way, in fact, many times, and puts himself in dangerous situations, to do the right thing by the most amount of people. And in this particular case, they could have had that payoff where it could have been him versus the Night King, or even if he didn't directly kill him, it could have been like, the distraction or the impetus to the actual defeat of the Night King, even if somebody else ultimately was the one that killed him. Same thing for Daenerys. Daenerys could have been the one that killed him. Again, to go with this whole prophecy of the chosen, the chosen one with a, Lord of Light and all that. The guy, the prince that was promised, that may have been a princess. And so, like, my wife was Arya. Could be Arya. Arya could be the one. Yes, but no. I mean, technically, sure, it could be anybody. But there are several things in the book and in the show and other things that point at it, specifically being a Targaryen and the child of Rhaegar, or the Targaryen line, that line. So I would have liked to see a better payoff there. Anyway, let me know what you think. There'll be more casts soon. I apologize for the short length of this. This was not planned or anything like that. I just kind of threw this together. I wanted to talk about it. It felt like I had to talk about it. So that's why I did this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Message me, subscribe. There'll be more videos to come. We'll be talking about comics. So Simon Says is going to be my video cast, podcast, however you want to call it. I'll be talking about the things I like. Simon says this, Simon says that. I'll be doing reviews, etc., etc. I'll be wanting to talking to guests and stuff. So I'll let you know of things I like, things I wish were kind of different. It's going to be, like I said, comics, video games, movies, show related, basically all geek things because I'm a geek. And that's it. Hope to see you soon. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's talk about it. I'll be glad to have people on this also through Skype or whatever if you guys want to talk. Anybody wants to have a conversation, I'm down for that as well. Hit me up. This has been Jose Simon for Simon Says.